This is the BBC.
This podcast is supported by advertising outside the UK.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Are you looking for something funny to binge listen to? The Flip podcast from BBC Radio 4 has the best box set comedy from people like Rhys James, Mae Martin and Joe Lycett. Each month, there's a new box set to listen to. Subscribe to the Flip podcast on BBC Sounds.
Thanks for downloading the In Our Time podcast from BBC Radio 4. I'm Melvin Bragg, and this week's show is on knock-knock jokes. I had you there, didn't I? Of course it's not. This is Comedy of the Week. It's a good one too. Check it out.
My favourite thing about Hastings is the beach.
Well, I don't like the beach.
We moved here 24 years ago.
I moved here about 6 months ago.
Just over a year ago.
I've lived here 12 years.
I am born and bred in Hastings.
Since I moved here, I've started singing, playing a band.
I'm in a band myself.
There's the events, there's the music, there is so much to do here.
People in Hastings dress up at the drop of a hat.
One blot on our horizons, what's being done to the pier at the moment.
I think the pier's great.
When it first opened, I thought they hadn't finished it.
Golden covered nonsense.
I really love it.
Hastings is a pearl that comes with its own grit.
Mark Steele's in town.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, and welcome to Mark Steele's in Town, which this week comes from the seaside town of Hastings, a wholesome village of Franciscan monks. It's a welcoming town, which is why you have an affectionate name for people who move here. Filth, which stands for Failed in London, Try Hastings, and it's such a... The warmth just oozes out, and it's a pity you weren't quite so robust in repelling newcomers 950 years ago, but... Can't have everything. This is a town known for looking forwards. It's not like these places that make a big thing about some incident associated with the town way back in the past. There's the odd sign saying 1066 country on every road for 8 miles every 25 yards. There's a 1066 jazz club where I suppose they improvise the sensation of getting an arrow in the eye on a trumpet. There's a 1066 Citizens Advice Centre, 1066 Waxing for Men, a 1066 Psychotherapist. These are all true. 1066 Stress Management Centre, and a 1066 Bakery and a 1066 Veterinary Centre. I'm afraid there's nothing we can do for Mr. Fluffles. There are over 70 companies called 1066, including a builder called William the Concreter. The tourist slogan is Visit 1066 Country, because you're proud of the fact that when a bunch of bandits came over and killed our king and made us pay everything we had in taxes and murdered half of us, that was here where that happened. So where better for fish and chips and to enjoy yourself with a gentle stroll next to a pier owned by someone you all hate. But there are plenty of other wonderful tourist attractions, like your Funicular Railway. Only £3 a ride, and it goes as high as 3 flights of stairs. The tourist website says it's the steepest railway in the country. Well, of course it is, because it's a lift. But you should be proud, Hastings, that so many people come here to live or visit for a day, attracted by the glorious views as they walk past the pier. As long as they're looking out to sea, obviously. But lots of artists and people who like the Hastings vibe do move down here, because it's so much cheaper than Brighton, than the... Of course, it's actually St Leonard's where we bought our flat. I keep telling the locals here that St Leonard's and Hastings are the same place, and they play this game where they glare at you. It's so gangster. The marvellous thing is, though, that the people who moved down here and the people who are already here all seem to agree on the fundamental issue that you should have a drink. And Someone told me every week we have a parade of some sort as we love dressing up and getting drunk. So there's Pirates Day. There's Pirates Day and there's Jack in the Green Day and Hastings Bonfire Society and there's Hastings Pride and Fat Tuesday, which is Pancake Day, except it goes on for 5 days full of music and drinking and nobody bothers with pancakes. And the first 2 residents I spoke to about Hastings gave me a little list of notes of things that they felt were important about the town. And both of them put on their list, Hastings is 3rd in the table of heroin consumption across Britain. That's what every town needs, local achievement. And this place is truly historical because of William the Conqueror. But it was also one of the Cinque Ports given special treatment for centuries in return for being one of the towns responsible for defending Britain against the French. And you were lucky to get that, weren't you? Now, the history of the country, the whole of Britain, is alive in every corner here. So it's touching that when I ask people here what they're proud of in the town, one of the most common answers was Bottle Alley. And you say things like, that's got history. I lost my virginity up there. They've installed a light show in there. You've all seen the light show. It's brilliant, that. I mean, I think that's a smart thing to do when the main reason anyone's there is they've gone, let's have a bunk up where no one can possibly see us. But a concrete underpass beneath the prom, and it is wonderfully multi-sensory experience. The swirling lights contrasting with the pebbles, merging into the dramatic sunset, the gentle lapping of the waves, and a soothing, overwhelming stench of urine. I'm sure you all know the segments of coloured glass inserted into the wall in Bottle Alley were made from 15 tonnes of broken bottles, which were collected following one session in the Lord Nelson. Occasionally, just occasionally, there's a little bit of tension in Hastings, such as the protest about the opening of the Jerwood Art Gallery. Now, as far as I can make out, some people objected to the art gallery because they don't think there should be an art gallery. The BBC website reported residents built a model of the art gallery which they cast into flames as they vented their anger at the plan. Other people might take the attitude that if you don't want to visit an art gallery, you just don't go, but that's too soft, Hastings. You want to make sure there aren't any art galleries. Otherwise, kids will have to walk up that road, straight past paintings of fruit, and that's not on. It wasn't the only complaint. The website also says locals are unhappy that the building replaced a coach park. I suppose you all went, that's got sentimental value, that coach park. My granddad used to go dogging in there. And then there are lots of different bits of Hastings. The unaware may wander casually up past the pier, enjoying the last of their chips that the seagulls haven't swiped, and think, Hastings. But they're mistaken, because they're no longer in Hastings. They've crossed the border into St Leonard's. And they'll say, I think you'll find we do things different round here. And then there's a third bit called the Old Town. And this is the part with the magnificent shops and cafes and galleries, usually all in the same room. There's the most confusing place. There's a Thai restaurant in a bookshop. There's a couple of shops that sell essentials such as the cigar shop, but then most of them make no sense at all. They'll just, like, in the window have a sheepskin jacket, an ant encased in perspex, and a jar of pickled pears. But there is a Hastings mentality that once you're here, you don't really like to go anywhere again, really. Someone told me that their friend was offered a job in Bexhill, and they said, oh, no, I'm not going to commute. 4 miles away. Like going on safari. This is an account I read of a visit in a book called Stories of St Leonard's. My stepbrother made a face and said, "So this is Hastings." I rolled my eyes and said, "No, that side is Hastings. This is St Leonard's. We've got to be on this side because the light's all wrong the other side." That is a magnificent rivalry when you believe the other place, which is the same as your place, has worse light than you. It's a fact, once you pass the pier, everything's dark purple. The author of that book, Stories from St Leonard's, said the new Asda was opened and they called it their Hastings store. So the residents gave them a round telling off until they changed their name on their sign to the St Leonard's store. Anyway, there'd be no point in having an Asda in Hastings. You wouldn't be able to see the vegetables because the light's too murky. St Leonard's had its own pier until it burnt down in 1917, so on that issue, St Leonard's was ahead of Hastings, who didn't copy the idea of burning their pier down until many years later. Now, most historians think that William the Conqueror's fleet landed at Pevensey Bay, down west a little bit, and then walked to here. And it had to be that way round, because if the English troops had had to go from here to Pevensey Bay for the battle, they'd have gone, "Oh no, we're not going to commute." And this is one of the brilliant features of the Battle of Hastings. It wasn't in Hastings. It was probably fought about 6 miles up the road in a place that was so determined to be known as the place where the English suffered their most massive ever defeat that they called it Battle. And what you learn if you read about the Battle of Hastings is we know hardly anything about the Battle of Hastings. We don't know where it happened. We have no idea how many fought on each side. Some say the Saxons had 5,000, some say 15,000, some say Harold was on top of a ridge, others say he can't have been near a ridge. It was assumed he was killed with an arrow in the eye, but now most historians believe that that was a syringe. I never realised this, but by far the most important source for what we know about the Battle of Hastings is the embroidery known as the Bayeux Tapestry. I didn't know this. One book I read has a bit arguing with another historian going, one can't take seriously statistics on ship capacity as deduced from the Bayeux Tapestry. Well, of course you can't. You can't base your view of history literally on what somebody embroidered years later, unless they're right and the Battle of Hastings was fought between 17 people on each side and everyone was front on and looked about 12 and the fighting all took place on some cloth. After the battle, Harold's mistress, Edith the Swan-Necked, had to identify his body because, according to a BBC documentary, Harold's body was so mutilated it was recognised by certain secret marks known only to her. That one, she said, is from a night up Bottle Alley. It's marvellous how much you respect your part in history. Not only do you appreciate the solemn nature of the Norman invasion, you're equally sombre about the role of piracy in this town. Because pirates controlled the seas off the coast here, they carried out unspeakable acts, and you honour that every year on Pirates' Day by dressing up in false beards and drinking until you're sick outside Costa Coffee. I came. It's brilliant, isn't it? It was so Hastings. This is true. The first pirate I saw was dressed head to toe as a pirate and carrying a cutlass, and he was riding a mobility scooter. It wasn't even his. He just jumped on board and made them walk off the back. This was reported in the Hastings Online Times. A proposal to rebrand street drinkers in Hastings and St Leonard's as pirates has been put forward as part of the town's bid to become the UK's City of Culture. The idea would see street drinkers issued with bandanas, eye patches, striped T-shirts and stuffed parrots in an effort to gentrify the town. Now, it turned out this was on April Fool's Day and it was a joke, right? But the thing is, Hastings is the only place where this would fool people because it does seem perfectly plausible. But pirates say isn't just about debauchery, it's also the way you became a world record holder. Because you beat the world record for the most people dressed as pirates in one place, previously held by Penzance, who felt that the record was rightfully theirs because of the Gilbert and Sullivan opera Pirates of Penzance. But you got 14,230 pirates together, so then Penzance tried to win the record back. But, according to the Daily Telegraph, an attempt by Penzance to beat the world record failed after one group accidentally stayed in the pub and missed the count. Surely some of your lot did that as well. Did you? Now, I think you should rub it into Penzance now by demanding that the Pirates of Penzance is renamed the Pirates of Hastings. Starting with this verse. Our seaside town's a spectacle and fit to keep a pharaoh in. Our railway line is vertical, we're third at taking heroin. The common folk of Hastings with St Leonard's somewhat fancy ones, dressed up to give a pasting to defeat those damn Penzanceans. You love dressing up here. There's something brilliant about it. There's a festival here called Jack in the Green. A charming tradition in which local people give thanks to the changing of the seasons by dressing in green. Because apparently the Jack in the Green is a box covered in leaves. Someone climbs in and dances through the streets. One of those ancient customs that feels lost in the mist of time. And according to the official Jack in the Green book that I've got there, it is now 25 years since the revival of the Hastings Jack in the Green in 1983. Painting yourself green, this is what it says right at the time. Painting yourself green is essential. Any part of the anatomy is considered fair game. Backs of bald heads and cleavages are popular, and if someone has their buttocks painted, it's considered to be a high score greening. And then this is the bit I found a bit disturbing. This won Hastings Event of the Year in 2007. That was the best thing to happen here. Oh, yeah, what comes second? Someone bought a banana? So the Jack in the Green suits Hastings. It's fuelled by drink, it's arty, it's not really necessary. But there is an underworld here. It's at the end of the line. No one's going to check up on what you're up to. And it was always like this. This is the sort of thing that's exciting about Hastings. For example, other towns boast celebrities like a newsreader or someone who won a bronze medal at something. But the Hastings Independent list of famous people who lived here had as their number one, who do you think it was? Aleister Crowley, of course it was. Saying Aleister Crowley, notorious as a traitor, a deviant, a drug fiend and in league with the devil. Obviously, no one's claiming Hastings was to blame for making him like he was. I mean, his interests were fire and heroin and strange ceremonies. He could have come from absolutely anywhere. But this is the thing, your most famous characters are glorious. They're proper Hastings. They're full of adventure, but with an unhinged dark side. Another one, the man who wrote the ragged trousered Philanthropist, Robert Trestle, lived in Hastings. He was a painter and decorator who wrote this famous book every night after work, and it's the tales of a socialist painter and decorator arguing with his workmates in a town called Mugsborough, which is clearly Hastings. And this is honestly something I remember from when I read it a long time ago, which is the painters would get drunk on the way to work. In the morning. And at the time I thought, well, that can't be right. And now I've been here, I think it's very well observed. But you can see why people are attracted to Hastings and why once they're here they very rarely leave. Every pub seems to have a band with someone from Steel Eye Span or who played with Bowie. Now, I went round with Glenn Vaness, who I'm sure many of you know. And everywhere we passed, Glenn would say, see that place? Iggy Pop's guitarist was in there on Wednesday. Barack Obama was in there on Sunday playing the ukulele. So I'd like to introduce Glenn, if I may. then just run us through some of the pubs where there's bands.
Well, on a normal Sunday, you might start at the Jenny, you know, when we saw the Hastingers.
Yeah.
You might go to Porter's, the Albion, for sure. Without a doubt, the Lord Nelson, my favourite pub.
It does seem like everywhere you go, there's
Everywhere
a band.
you go, there's a good band.
You go up the post office, there'll be a band playing.
Yeah, there will be a band.
You go to the dentist, and a car mechanic will say, we've done your oil and your brake pads, and we took your radio out and put a saxophonist on your back seat instead. Because you were saying it's a lot of musicians come here because it's a good place to disappear. I've got to tell you this. I went around last night. Glenn said, you've got to come to me garden. You've got to come to me garden. And I thought, that's a funny request. And he said, oh, it's marvellous. And I was going around, I thought, wow, there's going to be a gnome. And it is extraordinary. It's like Glastonbury down there.
Has anyone been to my garden here?
It's one of the best venues in the country for music. And on a Tuesday night, I went into the Albion, and then there's a skiffle band playing. And amazing, not only that, but the lead singer in the band also happened to be the landlord of the pub. Bob, is he there? So, are you aware, Bob, that's not usually part of the remit of landlords?
That's what we do.
A passerby came in and started playing the harmonica with you.
Yes, he did, yes. Yeah.
Do you know who that was, or was that just...
No. The man off the street, yeah.
Could he just walk in with anything? Like
pretty much, yeah.
Tuba?
Why not?
Well, one Thursday in February, Royal Philharmonic just came in. But also, you were saying, like, we were talking about sort of the number of homeless people in Hastings.
Oh, yeah,
You've got a theory, Glenn,
no, everyone seems to think that we've got a problem with homeless people, but they like Hastings so much, they come here. It's not a bad thing, and they get looked after here. You know, we just had one recently. He left a little sign on the pavement, and he said, thanks for all your help, got the keys to my new home today, which was lovely, you know. And it was because we helped him, you know, because that's Hastings, we're very caring. So the homeless come here, have a good time, you know.
So it's quite Wild West. It's the only place where I've been into a bookshop and the owner tried to sell me a bottle of Venezuelan rum. And the Lord Nelson. So we all know the Lord Nelson. This is a fantastic pub. I went there on a Sunday with Glenn, a Sunday lunchtime, and he said it's going to be mad in there. And usually when people say that, it's really not. And I went in there, and there was Django Reinhardt on the jukebox. People were dancing, but to something else entirely. And this massive bald bloke came straight up to me, the first thing that happened, and I swear these were his exact words, except for those that I'm not allowed to say. He went, "Oi, this pub is the epicentre nucleus of East Sussex." And I thought, OK, and even then I could not have predicted the next sentence. Because here, the bar staff will always say, don't ask me to get me tits out, because that ain't right. A feminist slogan for our times, I think. and then honestly, he went, oh, hang on. And he went backwards in magnificent slow motion, crashed on the floor, face down. No one took the blindest bit of notice. He was making a noise, singing something. I think it was Nirvana, but I really couldn't guarantee it. And then he got up and went, "You never saw that coming, did you?" As Glenn said, there's a big homeless population here, especially on the Hastings side, because it's made worse by all the people who have a house but can't find it because of the light. It all leads me to think that the most Hastings episode of all is what has happened to your peer. The whole point of a peer is it's just fun, fun, fun. Certainly no peer could ever be at the centre of an economic and political controversy. The pier here has been always controversial from the start because as soon as there was a plan to build a Hastings pier, a rival plan was formed to build one in St Leonard's instead. Then the St Leonard's pier burnt down during the war and the Hastings pier became a major venue until it was damaged by storms, and then in 2010 it burnt down again. So both the piers burnt down and one of them burnt down twice. You do like a fire. This is where it all gets murky because recently there was a £12 million grant to save the pier and then a fund set up in the town that raised £500,000 towards buying the pier. But then it was sold for only £100,000 to Sheikh Abid Gulzar. So are we all fans of the Sheikh? This may be controversial. I had quite a nice cup of tea on the pier from a golden teapot in the shape of an elephant. Honestly, you get tea in a golden because he likes everything to be gold. He's got a gold golf buggy thing on there, hasn't he? Everything gold. And the lad who served me said, you can have a golden teapot, but you have to stay inside because people have been running off with them. So let me take this opportunity to ask who's got one. Go on. Are you trying to get your money back one teapot at a time? I love this about Hastings. I love that the local council offered Hastings Castle to English Heritage, but they didn't want it. But television was invented here. John Logie Baird was living here when he invented television. There's a statue of a giant winkle. Not everyone's got that. The World Crazy Golf Championships are here. One boast on the tourist website is you had the world's first underground car park. I think it's a compliment that so many people want to come here and that the ones who do are all a little bit damaged. And in a way, even William the Conqueror may have come here for reasons that most people have missed, because apparently, and historians seem to agree on this, I quote, in 1087, William put himself on a diet. He told his staff he would eat no more but lie in bed and drink alcohol. He knew he'd fit in. You're not going to get the people coming here who are going to go, we just want to spend the rest of our days quietly looking out to sea and doing nothing. We're 32 now, we've had enough excitement. So I will leave you, Hastings, with the scene that illustrates the spirit of your inventive, artistic and anarchic town where Brighton began, a chapter of the inspiring book about working life, the ragged trousered Philanthropist. This is one of my favourite bits from the book. Thank you very much. I'll leave you this bit. The decorator Owen looked with horror at his wage packet and exclaimed, is that all we get? We painted the whole town green and he gives us no more than a penny per buttock. I've been offered threepence, said his friend Scarpy, for a skilled job. A rich man from Egypt has bought the Bayeux Tapestry and wants me to paint it gold. It's the people who come here from outside that spoil things, said Scarpy. We call them the sheiks here in towns. But they didn't seem to mind. They relaxed at the 1066 Health Spa and went to a shop that sold paintbrushes and ukuleles and started a band.
Mark Steele's In Town was written and performed by Mark Steele, with additional material by Pete Sinclair. It was produced in Hastings by Carl Cooper, and it was a BBC Studios production.
Seriously, guys, that was great, right? If that's not enough comedy for you, why not try the Tez Talks podcast? Fellow comedian and all-round good egg, Tez Ilyas, has a new podcast. Do check it out, guys, on BBC Sounds.
Hello, I'm Tez Ilyas, and I'm here to tell you about my podcast, Tez Talks. It'll make you laugh, cry, and even question the cultural choices you have historically made. You can subscribe to Tez Talks on BBC Sounds.